So excited to be with you today. I had heard a lot about the Philippines growing up, but had never visited until 3 years ago. Our countries have been intertwined for decades. In fact, your family and my family are probably intertwined to some degree because during World War II, my father served here alongside your ancestors, your relatives, to make sure that you had freedom. I heard about, thank you. When I was a teenager, he moved us to Silicon Valley. Who could find Silicon Valley on a map? I'm going to give you a way to find Silicon Valley. We're in the middle of California. We are about an hour south of San Francisco. In fact, I'm going to give you a way to help other people find San Jose, Silicon Valley. So if you could take your right hand and put it up toward the screen, turn it slightly so that the thumb is near or on San Francisco, and then you see San Jose is down here, right? And then that's the San Francisco Bay in between. There are many, many high-tech companies headquartered there. This is where I live. I consider it the primordial ooze of the future. Not that it's exclusive. There are lots of places the future is being invented. For our time together, we're just going to focus on one element of leadership, and we're in fact going to focus on one Silicon Valley company. Leadership is a broad topic. We're going to take just one slice of that, focusing on team leadership. Jack Welch said, building a great team is a leader's top priority. In order to lead a thriving team, you need to be cognizant of certain elements that make up a positive, effective team. When you do that, you have a staff who is excited to come to work. Who would like that? Who would like to have a staff that is excited to come to work? Yes. Some of you are raising 2 hands. Yes, I want that. Or you want staff who shares ideas on how to increase effectiveness. Who would like that? Yes. I don't care whether you're a CEO, whether you're a manager, whether you're an individual contributor. All of this applies to all of you. You want to be on a team where your colleagues are excited about coming to work and they share ideas on how to increase effectiveness. And those of you who are managers, who would like to have your staff solve problems without your involvement? Yes, absolutely. The 5 things that I will share with you today will be some ways you can accomplish all 3 of these things. The company we're going to focus on is Google. They did a study a few years ago called the Project Aristotle. It was a comprehensive study. You can see 880 Google teams worldwide, including a mix of high and low performing teams, 1,500 interviews with those team leaders and the team participants. They analyzed over 250 different team attributes. They narrowed it down to 5 that they said made them most effective. You're saying, what are those attributes? I'm going to give you the 5, then I'm going to give you the definitions, and then I'm going to have you vote on which one you think was the top one. Because one of them was the top one and it had major impact on the team's effectiveness. The top 5 are dependability, impact, meaning, psychological safety, and structure and clarity. You are welcome to take pictures of any of my slides and also know that they are in the book as well. Dependability. Team members reliably complete quality work on time. There's no shirking responsibilities. I see some heads nodding, so some of you are saying that must be the top one of the 5. But what about impact? Impact is the result of one's work, the subjective judgment that your work makes a difference. This is external. How does your work make a difference on the end user, on the customer, on society maybe? It's beyond your company and you. It's the impact your contribution makes. What about meaning? Meaning is what you like about your work, how you get a personal sense of purpose in either the work itself or the output of it. You like what you do, you feel good about what you do. Meaning, that must be important, right? Psychological safety. An individual's perception that a team is safe or risk-taking. You can make mistakes, you can take risks, you can try things, you don't have to be perfect. No one will ostracize for you, you won't get penalized for it. That's psychological safety. And the fifth that we'll be discussing is structure and clarity. An individual's understanding of job expectations and the consequences of one's performance. You're either going to get a raise, you're going to get fired. There's consequences to your performance. And that's identified in that structure and clarity. Now it's time for you to vote. Who thinks dependability was that top one that I mentioned? Wow, nobody thinks that. Who thinks impact was the top one? A few of you. Who thinks meaning? Oh, a lot of you. Maybe a third to a half of you. That's a lot. Psychological safety? Maybe a quarter. And structure and clarity? 10 or 15 of you. All right, I'm going to reveal to you the top one, but I need a drum roll. Thank you. You guys are so good. What mattered most? Ready? Who was surprised? Yeah, I was surprised when I first heard this. We're going to talk about this. I'm going to give you the other four in the order of importance. Let's drill deep into psychological safety. Amy Edmondson is the researcher who coined the term. It can also be called emotional safety. She says psychological safety is a team climate characterized by interpersonal trust and mutual respect in which people are comfortable being themselves. Isn't that what we all want? Don't you want to show up to work just who you are and contribute the best you have of you and have that accepted and have that celebrated? Of course, this is what we all want. We want to be accepted, except that's not always the way it is. LinkedIn did an internal survey and found out that 82% of LinkedIn employees feel that they can be their authentic selves without fear of different treatment or punishment. That's astonishing. 82% felt comfortable being whoever they were at work and not being penalized or punished or feeling you had to hide your light under a bushel. They say it has had a major impact on performance and retention. Let's look at some signs. They have psychological threats. They are afraid to admit mistakes. You can't try anything new if you're afraid to make a mistake and admit it. Trying things is how you innovate. If you're afraid, you're never going to innovate. They're less likely to share different points of view. A few years ago, you might have heard that there was an accident at San Francisco airport where an airliner crashed. When I read the report, one of the things that stood out for me was the co-pilot knew they were coming in too low. He heard the alarms. He didn't say anything. He was afraid to express a different point of view. And it cost 3 people their lives, and 187 people were injured. That's a dramatic example of a cost of not speaking up. They blame others rather than taking some responsibility. Do only the minimum required. Nobody wants to work with people who only do the minimum required. And they're disengaged. You want people who are engaged, excited, etc. Carlos is a manager at a high-tech company. He told me this story one day that in meetings he was very frustrated. He says, when I share something vulnerable, someone would invariably make a snide comment. They would zing him or make some disparaging comment about his vulnerability. He said it was clear one should not admit one's vulnerabilities in the workroom. He was disengaged because it was not okay to be vulnerable with his colleagues. Here are some ways that psychological safety is expressed and built. People are comfortable admitting their mistakes. They're saying, you know, I blew it, here's what I learned from it. They share the lessons. They openly share ideas, even if it's a crazy idea. Often a crazy idea gets you out of the same-o mode, and the crazy idea gets you to go a different path which has a better solution. If you squelch crazy ideas, you're going to be in same-o. Better innovation and decision making is made when there's psychological safety, people are engaged and productive. In fact, don't just believe me. Let me share what Google found. Googlers on teams with higher psychological safety are less likely to leave Google. You know what it costs for turnover? You have to recruit, you have to train. It takes months to get people up to speed. Well, if you have less turnover, you're going to have much more productive teams. They're likely to embrace diverse ideas. They welcome those strange ideas and see what they can modify. Googlers are rated as effective by executives 2 times as often, saying that they are high producers. And they're more likely to bring in more revenue. In fact, let me share some data. That bar is the target sales revenue. Those on the teams deemed to be unsafe didn't even make their target. They're 19% off their target. Those deemed on psychologically safe teams, 17% above their target. No matter what your department or your company, you want them to be above whatever productivity targets you've got, right? Psychological safety is key. In the best teams, members listen to one another and show sensitivity to feelings and needs. I was surprised when I read this because often in tech companies, feelings are poo-pooed, but Google found that this was important. The largest skill shortage in the US. You want to guess? What's the largest skill shortage in the US? Soft skills. The U.S. is short 1.4 million professionals with soft skills, with people skills, communication skills. Communication is the #1 skill in demand in all 100 big cities that LinkedIn studied. Communication is the #1 skill lacking, not technical expertise, communication. Seth Godin said, let's stop calling them soft skills. They might be skills, but they're not soft. How do you create psychological safety? I'm just going to give you a couple of tips. Focus on the conversation. If you're in a meeting, let's say you're in a meeting with your table, it's really easy to be distracted, isn't it? We've got these little devices, these little distraction devices that we are addicted to. What Google found was the best teams put down their phones in the middle of the table, face down or off, and focused on the conversation. So if you're CEO, if you're a manager, if you're an individual contributor at your next meeting, I challenge you to say, we have a new process here for our meetings. Devices down in the middle of the table. You'll get so much more done. People will make eye contact. You'll be able to read the nuances. You'll be able to pull out the people who may be shyer, because they often have the best ideas. You have to pull them out. I call that focus conscious conversation. Your goal is to be a conscious conversationalist, making eye contact, verbally acknowledging them, asking questions to learn from your colleagues, uncovering what they mean behind their statements. Sasha Katz, who's the CEO of Oracle, said, if something doesn't make sense, give your colleagues the respect of asking tough questions. I would just say, if something doesn't make sense, ask questions. Not confrontive questions, just help me understand more. Tell me what you mean by, just pulling them out to better understand their ideas. Encourage them verbally. I see. Oh, well, really? Tell me more. Oh, that sounds interesting. And then listen attentively. Tom Peters said the highest compliment you can pay a customer or anyone is to listen. The highest compliment you can pay anyone is to listen. Carol Bartz, the former CEO of Yahoo, said, if you sit quietly long enough, you will find out what people really think. Sometimes we feel we have to fill the air with chatter. No, just sit quietly. Ask them those questions. Pull them out. What do you really think? What ideas do you have that I haven't heard yet? Do you have any ideas on how we can be more efficient, more productive, serve our customers better? I want to really hear what you have to say. Do you imagine how people feel respected and honored when you do that? I created this term, leaderful listening. Leaderful listening is when great leaders strive to fully understand others' ideas and perspectives. They respectfully ask probing questions without arguing. Even though this is my quote, I still have a hard time with this. I still find myself arguing with people that I respect and love and adore. I argue with them rather than pulling out. Tell me more. Help me understand. We're all works in progress. I have had to learn that I am not perfect. Are you? No. So when you've got a quote like that, you try to be that person, and I'm not always that person. That's what I strive to be. James O'Toole from the University of Denver said, as one's power grows, one's willingness to listen shrinks. There's more to the quote, but I want to just pause and let that one sink in. As your power grows, your willingness to listen shrinks, because one thinks they know more than their employees, ouch, or because seeking feedback will come at a cost. Those of you in the CEO positions, managers positions, please heed this. We don't want your willingness to listen to shrink. When you leave for today, I want you to be thinking about what can you do to become a better leader of your team. I've got one last thought to share. Let's go back to our hand. Psychological safety is our thumb, dependability, structure, meaning, impact. Just because this is success. It's in your hand. It is in your hand. Let me just say thank you for your kind attention. I am loving my third trip to the Philippines, and you are a big part of it.